Maybe I won't be able to collect in the Triumph, but hopefully I can collect this weekend.
Hi everyone, welcome back. It's episode 4 of the Cheltenham Festival Ante-Post series. Great to have you along once again, and hopefully we can smash the like goal, as has been the case on the last few weeks. Thank you so much for your ever increasing support on these videos. It's hugely appreciated, and we'd love to reach 300 likes on this video if possible, and get to that 2,500 subscriber mark, because we're not too far away with the Cheltenham Festival approaching. Lots to cover this week on the show, and as ever, I'm alongside two absolute sages of the racing scene, Jake Price and Dan Overall. Jake, come to you first. How are you? I imagine the torch paper was lit in your mind with the Cheltenham Festival Trials Day taking place at the weekend, and of course we're now getting ever closer to the big week.
Yeah, I actually just had a quick look through the history books before we started recording here, and the last time I didn't go to Trials Day it was 2017 when Many Clouds won. There was 2021 that got abandoned and moved to Sandown, but yeah, it was a bit of a wounded weekend not going there. But I was off to Prague, so I had a nice weekend over there, which was fun. And yeah, ready to get cracking and reviewing the Trials Day action.
I hope you've checked out all the form in great detail this week, Jake.
That's a great one, Bully.
He was checking out Czech Pilsners mainly during the weekend, which, to be fair,
Yeah.
very envious of that. Probably tasted a fair bit better than the 780 Guinness I was consuming.
Oh, so you had a few, you had a few bevies over the weekend, did you, Dan?
Yeah, we did indulge a bit. Yeah, it was one of those days, and it was quite quiet there actually. It was noticeably quiet. I mean, I think always kind of the way of it on Trials Day. It's a bit similar to the October meeting, and some of the field sizes weren't massive, which maybe put a few off. But no, it was a fun day. But it was yeah, it'll be interesting to see how many come out of that, because there was a few notable runners, obviously, that mainly drew the ire of the public and the stewards, to say the least.
Let's get back to business, and we're going to talk about what happened at the weekend in terms of performances now. Winning performances, that is. Start off with East India Doc in the Triumph Hurdle Trial, beating Stencil very impressively. Jake, he's done nothing wrong so far. For me, he's been visually very, very good in every performance so far. I think he should be further in keeping in line with Lou Lambert, I have to say, in the Triumph Hurdle market. What did you make of the efforts?
Yeah, it was a really impressive performance, wasn't it? As Dan kind of mentioned last week, like it was questionable how much more he could achieve this weekend to enhance his reputation for the Triumph Hurdle. But
I got that one wrong, Lord above.
Yeah, he really managed to do it. It was a really impressive performance because he was up against a field full of decent enough horses. You know, there were some good French recruits in there. Mambo number 5, Savignon. You know, they had marks in the 130s. Obviously, I'll touch on Stencil in a minute, but yeah, it was a decent field full of probably Boodles hopefuls, and he's absolutely destroyed them over the course and distance of the Triumph Hurdle. Obviously, as you rightly mentioned, we're going to be drawing comparison to Lalamba now, and had Lalamba not had such a massive profile beforehand, I'm sure that they'd be much closer in the betting, and East India Doc might even potentially go off favourite at some point, considering he has achieved more. He's definitely a very precocious 4-year-old, and perhaps he's the horse for here and now. Whereas, Lalamba probably has more of a longevity and future ahead of him. But it's going to be a very interesting clash if the two make it there and we get to see it. Obviously, as I said, Stencil was the one who tried to chase him home in second, and he looks like to have a decent chance in the Boodles. He's been absolutely smashed off the boards. I think he's favourite now across the board for the Boodles. The only thing I would say about that is he was rated 134 in France before this weekend's run. So you're probably looking around that, unless they give him the Milan Tino treatment of last year, where they dropped in £10 magically for finishing second behind Burdett Road. But I can't imagine they'll drop him £10, and therefore he's probably not going to be, spectacularly well in at the weights compared to some horses that will be in there. So that's just something to bear in mind with him. Obviously, he was best of the rest and did well enough in second, but yeah, a very impressive performance from East India Doc, and he definitely deserves to be right at the top of the Triumph market, and it starts to clear the muddy waters of the juvenile picture.
Yeah, it does, and potentially clear the waters of the Boodles picture as well, of course, with Stencil potentially going that route as well, as you say. And when I went to see Noel George, I've mentioned fair few times on this podcast so far, this campaign, we watched Stencil School, and Noel George was very much of the uh, exalted opinion, really, that he was one of the best jumpers he's seen. So,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
Every horse in his yard is the best horse the world's ever seen.
I tell you what,
Every
though,
single one.
I tell you what, he did say to me that Stencil was going to win the Triumph Hurdle. Now he's obviously got that one wrong, but
Yeah, but
he might.
he's also gonna. He should have won the King George. He should have won the Hennessy. He would have won the Triumph. Can't win that. So now I guess he's absolute stone cold certainty for the Poodles.
Do you know what I would say in his
Well,
defence, though? I would say in his defence that he said he was going to win the Hennessy with Germain Chef, who came there swinging on the bridle and then finished third. He said he was going to win the King George, and he only just got beaten. So actually,
So
it's
lost
not.
both then.
It's not what he did. It's not. It's not like
we've not
beyond
made a
the
single
realms
penny.
of- his. I suppose what I'm saying is his guesses haven't been totally outlandish. Hopefully, he can get a big prize at some point. Dan, let's go to you, shall we? For Aurora Vega in the Solarina, I thought she did that well.
I think the notes on the running order say got the job done. I think that's probably fair enough. Normally, the Solrino, obviously, we'd have as a leading trial going into the Mares Novice Hurdle at Cheltenham. I don't think it's going to have that much of a bearing this year. She's been a horse where I think maybe underwhelmed quite a bit. Obviously, I think an exalted pedigree, you would have hoped for a bit more. She's been a bit underwhelming while winning a lot of the time so far. This is probably a career best, and I think she's going in the right direction. But I don't think Jake's going to have too many sleepless nights with his 6.5 slip about Aurora Vega. And yeah, it did look a bit of an underwhelming field going into it. And in fact, I think the connections generally thought Baby Kate was going to be the one in that race, and she was a bit disappointing. So yeah, I'm not sure if Aurora Vega will necessarily even go to the Mares Novice. I'm not sure, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be a massive trial for the Mares Novice as it usually is this time.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and I'm with you too. That Baby Kate was off the bridle very early in the race, never ran any kind of race at all. Back to you, Jake, for the Cotswold Chase. Long Presse, everyone's favourite Grade Two winner. He beat Stage Star, and the pair were clear of the rest. Stage Star ran a massive race over that extra distance, didn't he? And it was a real thriller to watch. Just in terms for a racing fan, it was a cracking finish.
Yeah, it was a really odd race, wasn't it? Like they both came swinging round the home bend. Charlie Deutsch took a look behind, and then Harry Cobden copied him and took a look behind as well, just to say, yeah, I'm going just as well as you here. Yeah, I mean, Le Homme Press had everything in his favour to go and win the race, like the penalty structure, the ratings, everything was in his favour to go and win, and he managed to get the job done eventually, but he did have to work very hard to get all the way to the line and just about get up. As you say, Stage Star ran an absolute cracker. It's pretty much his first try at 3 miles, wasn't it? And he clearly stays. Jumps really well the whole way around, and straight after the race, Paul Nicholls said that they're going to aim him straight at the Aintree Bowl in April. So, he clearly does like going fresh. Whether you could chuck him into a Ryanair, I don't know. Maybe that comes too soon. Maybe 3 miles is now his trip, but he would have a good chance in the bowl if they do go there fresh, and everyone else has a hard race beforehand.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of race for him, isn't it, really? We'll see how they both get on going forward. And back to you, Dan. I thought with Constitution Hill's victory in the Unibet Hurdle, it was I likened it to when I'm walking along the road and I'm in my own little world, and then I kind of trip. I felt that was like his mistake at the final flight was just because he completely lost all concentration because it was just so easy.
Is that a regular occurrence for you, where you just like stop running wall and trend fall over yourself?
Oh,
I
no,
think you might need to
I
consult someone about that.
No, it does happen a bit, but I think it's largely due to the fact that I wear those ridiculous large trainers, which are obviously too oversized and therefore made me trip.
One thing I didn't expect to ever hear was a direct comparison to Racing TV's Tom Bull and Constitution Hill. You are full of surprises as usual. I know what you mean, but it was the thing is jumping is just so good and efficient for 95, 98% of the time. Like even at the start of that race, Brentford Hope tried to go forward. Constitution, it was kind of happy to just kind of track, and he didn't even try to go back. He just jumped past him in 2 hurdles and took 5 to 6 lengths out of all of them. Like he is when he jumps a hurdle right, he's the best hurdler around, but without a shadow of a doubt, and that just takes horses out of their comfort zone. Look, this race was run at a crawl. He was able to dictate. He was just lobbing along, as you say, kind of at his own leisurely manner. He out in front. Obviously, the issue at the last was see, an interesting one. I guess that's your hope, really, of getting him beat, because he has the potential to do that. Obviously, we know he has so much scope that he can almost, in his own right, attack hurdles from really far out, and maybe one day that will be what catches him out, rather than any horse necessarily being better than him, but it was a routine bit of work. I'm sure they were, bar the last, absolutely delighted. Wouldn't have had an overly hard race, and good to see that he can now almost have more consistent runs. Obviously, it's been a journey to get to this stage. The fact that he was able to back up so quickly after the Christmas hurdle straight there, obviously another run in the month and a half time, hopefully then at Aintree, and he would have had a pretty full season, which I don't think many of us would have expected at the start of the season.
No, I think that's very fair. And Dan, just to keep you on this champion hurdle picture, this weekend in the Dublin Racing Festival is obviously going to be very pivotal in terms of the champion hurdle market. Now, let's just say hypothetically that State Man disappoints again. Do we think that the Donnellys might think to themselves, Willie Mullins might say, you know what, we have Amsterdam as a potential replacement here. Let's just throw him in, because if State Man does disappoint again, he could end up being their number one hope, couldn't he, in those colours?
Potentially, yeah. So I think it'll depend on the manner. I think if he's beaten by Lossiemouth and it's relatively close, I think they'll just go there with State Man, bearing in mind he is the reigning champion. I never really convinced that Cheltenham. I know he's obviously won the county and won the champion hurdle last year, but I'm not sure he absolutely loves Cheltenham. I'd say his form is generally around Leopardstown. So it'll be interesting to see how it gets on there. I know what you mean, but also with Amsterdam, I think that Willie Mullins was at pains to suggest that maybe as a 5-year-old this year, not taking on those time of horses isn't best for his long-term development, maybe at this stage. Obviously, he can be quite keen. Maybe it's a bit too much for him at this stage. Aintree was mooted as the potential target. Obviously, we didn't learn really much about Amsterdam other than that he's just a horse with a very big engine, a very bright future. I'd say I don't know if there were any early prices about it now, but would you probably say early Arkle favourite, even if he doesn't go to Cheltenham with that level of ability? Probably Novice Chasing does beckon sooner rather than later. Maybe that depends on the activities of State Man and Lossiemouth as well. But very exciting horse in his own right, but maybe not a Cheltenham horse this year.
Okay. Jake, come back to you, because the Cleve Hurdle is a race that usually ends up being quite a decent climax, and it was this year as well, with Gal Road winning. And I'm just going to read to you the winners of the race since 2014. If you take out Thistlecrack in 2016, Nokara Bow, Stafidu Ray, you know what I mean, Harry, Agrapar, Paisley Park winning it 3 times. Then we got Gold Tweet, Noble Yates, and this year Gal Road. Now, I know Paisley Park won the Stairs Hurdle once, and Thistlecrack won it once, but it's not a great record as regards the Stairs Hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival. I'm not entirely sure Gal Road is going to be bang there in the big race.
Yeah, it's a bit of a sign of the Stairs Hurdle times, isn't it? That we've got Gull Road winning a Grade 2 Cheltenham Festival trial. I mean, fair play to him. Obviously, he's a very gallant horse. 4 seconds this season, finally gets the job done. Clearly, well-deserved 4 connections, but he's beaten Monmoral, the Potemps winner, and Botox Hazards in third. I mean, if we're really looking at this as a Stairs Hurdle trial, then I think we're in trouble. I don't think we're in any danger at all of the Cleve producing the Stairs Hurdle winner this year. But yeah, I mean, fair play to Connections with Gal Road, because he's got the job done and did what he had to do. But the main market, rivals there, Crambo and Strong Leader, I just don't think either of them really love Cheltenham that much, do they? Especially in Strong Leader's case. Crambo obviously made that awful mistake, which put him on the back foot from a long way out. But yeah, it was a disappointing race in terms of a trial for Cheltenham.
Do you know what, Jake? I find it hard to believe that we can't get a consistent challenger at a high level in the Stairs ranks at the moment. I don't know what it is. You say Strong Leader and Crambo can't act at Cheltenham. We've still got Home by the Lee winning in Grade 1 company in Ireland. And until we come up with a decent contender, I just think it's going to be a benefit for Teupu over the next few years.
Do you not give Lucky Place a bit of a contender for us? No? He's surely the only one.
Yeah.
He's on his stage. He's improving. He's proven. How do you know? He's never had a try at 3 miles, really. He's a young, improving horse. I don't see how he isn't an each way contender in that race. He's the only hope we've got. Lord above.
Yeah.
I can see Gal Road hitting the frame because it's what he does.
Yeah. The other main problem is Teupu doesn't run all season, does he? He runs in the Hatton's Grace and then he turns up at the Staters. So if he ran in all the trials, then he probably would win them all. But as I said, he's not there. So.
Yeah.
Honestly, how are they not looking at these races and thinking we could mop up hundreds of thousands during the season?
It does seem a bit odd, to be honest.
I mean, Best Fresh it's great, but I mean, he doesn't even need to be at his best to win most of these races. He would mop up so much money, but there you go.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see him at Cheltenham. Yay. Okay.
Stone Bruise.
Oh, perish the thought. Potter's Charm got beaten, Dan, by 6 Mile Bridge, who actually I thought hit the line. The further he went, the more impressive he looked. He was very strong at the finish.
He was. I'm not really sure what bearing this will have on the festival, to be honest. It was full of horses who were exciting in their own right, but maybe obviously outside of Potter's Charm with Grade 1 potential, you were probably questioning. 6 Mile Bridge did well. I think there were a few notable underperformances. Obviously, Potter's Charm chief amongst those. Bill Joyce probably just needs it bottomless, I'd say. Like, I think that's only when you ever see the best of him is on really deep ground. They just couldn't help themselves, could they, with Potter's Charm? They just couldn't help, but they didn't. They couldn't bring themselves to give a horse about 3 months off. It's just not in their DNA. And God bless them, they run their horses, and there's a lot to be said for that. But a lot of the time, when it comes to the spring, they're absolutely knackered, and it happens a fair bit too often. Unfortunately, the very few horses can take the kind of consistent running that they give, especially in high level races. Like it takes a lot, especially it's for these types. So you have to say that's really kind of buggered the chances up of come March now. He's been very impressive at that point, and you give him a chance of bouncing back for sure. He's still a long term, a nice prospect, but yeah, it's going to take some miraculous training performance to get him back from that in peak form when he's going to be up against rivals who are probably arriving on much better preparations, i.e. the new Lion, who will be going there fresh.
Yeah, and I think it's very easy to say in hindsight, isn't it? But you look at that Tolworth hurdle run, the Formby, I should say now, where he beat Miami Magic. It wasn't as though he had an easy race. Like he was made to pull out all the stops in that, and I know he won quite well in the end. But you look at that and you think, well, only a month later, he's already had a few runs this season, as you say, at high levels. It's going to catch up with you eventually, isn't it? And the same happened with Broadway Boy and others.
Oh, don't mention Broadway Boys campaigning, my lord. The only thing I'm thankful for there is that they didn't flog him into the Welsh National, which they were highly considering. I was like, that will be the end of this horse if he goes to a Welsh National. Please, for the love of God, don't do it. So hopefully they've learned their lesson in that regards. You can see the logic of why they wanted to run, because you looked at the entries and there really wasn't all that much to fear. But also at the same time, you've just won a Grade 1. Do you really need to go back for a Grade 2 when you've got a horse who's single figure price for a Grade 1 in March, and you can give him a bit of a break after already having quite a comprehensively busy start of the season? Look, we'll see. We'll see if Willie, because Willie's already kind of kicking himself about it. So let's see in future years whether that's lesson learned or not.
Yeah, okay. On to the Grade 3 Novice Chase at Naas on Sunday. Jake, this is won by Dancing City, who's done nothing wrong so far over fences and everything right, really. And there was a fair bit of chat, too, about Bioluminescence, who's now into favour for the Mayor's Chase. I think it had quite a big bearing on the Cheltenham markets, and I think we've seen two very nice horses there.
Yeah, it looked like a decent race on paper, and obviously it's worked out that way. Dancing City, I think he's only a horse who ever does really what he needs to do, but he stayed on well to win the race. I think the reason why Bioluminescence is getting so much credit and thought towards Cheltenham is because she was having to give Dancing City £1 on the penalty structure because she won a Grade 2 the last time. So she was actually giving weight away to a now Grade 1 contender in the Brown Advisory, and she gave them a really good race and finished in second place. The only thing I would say about Bioluminescence, obviously the Mayor's Chase is seemingly the target now, but she probably does need it at least soft to be at her best, especially over 2.5 miles. I think she's a stayer, so therefore you want it as soft as possible. So therefore, at the minute, she's probably not really an anti-post proposition for me in terms of she's into like what 4-1 joint favourite, I think it is at the minute. So I wouldn't be in a rush to take that. If you're not a bigger price, then obviously well done. That's a good position to be in. I think she's a really, really nice mare, and certainly one that I would look at on the day should it turn up soft or heavy. But I think at the moment it's one just to leave on the back burner and see how the race develops, because we've still got the likes of Impervious and stuff that are in the market, but we haven't even seen it yet. So is she going to be coming back? I have no idea. So it'll be interesting to see.
Is Bioluminescence not just Limerick lace in disguise?
Kind of, yeah.
As if conditions are like last year, then she'll have a cracking chance. And to be honest, you look at like the Limerick Lace, you look at like the Dino Blue. Like, I mean, I've been looking for something to oppose them to early in the series, and I always looked at Bioluminescence, but I was of the opinion that it would just need to be bottomless ground, realistically, for her to either run or go close. And if it's like last year, she'd have a fantastic chance. But Limerick Lace has been awful this season. Dino Blue, I think it's showing signs there are some issues there with tongue tines going on, not finishing races. So if it's soft to heavy Mayor's Chase, then she takes all the beating there because she's a lovely mare, really nice.
Yeah, she's got plenty of style about her, I think. And finally, on the weekend, Jake, just the last horse to mention is Marine, who won. It was yesterday, wasn't it? Actually, was it yesterday? Or
Yeah,
Monday?
Monday. Yeah.
Yeah, Monday. Yeah, did nothing wrong, and we haven't seen it for a long time. First up over hurdles, got to be encouraged by that.
Yeah, it was good to see her finally make her reappearance. Obviously, she's been favourite for the Mares Novice and a short price for about a year now, so it's good to finally see her make the track. I think that 2.5 miles on heavy ground at Punchestown is probably the least relatable test that she could have had to the Mares Novice, though. Like the Mares Novice is obviously 2-1, you do need to stay, but I doubt it's going to be run on the ground that atrocious as it was at Punchestown on Monday. And she went and got the job done. She kind of tied up towards the finish, and one of the horses stayed on from the back of the pack. But yeah, I just thought that there's not too much to be like worried about in terms of my 6.5 bet. Obviously, she's 8-1 to 4-1 now, which looks like a decent position to be in. I think Maureen will improve and she'll bounce, come forward for that. But she was at a very short price beforehand, and now she's an even shorter price at probably, I think it's like 3-1 maximum that you can get now. So that just looks a bit of a ridiculous price to me, considering she's going to have to show a lot more speed and a lot more tenacity at the Cheltenham Festival. And she's coming there on the back of 2 career starts. Like she's not going to get another run in now. So she's 6.5's only had 1 start over hurdles, but she's had plenty of experience in bumpers and flat races. So that would definitely be in her favour. And I could easily see the 2 switching in the market come the day. I haven't seen a single person say that Marine's a good price and that they want to be on her, to be honest. So if that's the case, then surely at some point they're going to end up switching around.
Yeah, I think you make a very valid point. The last thing to cover then for Cheltenham Trials Day, it's dinner. Stat Dan. Trying to get it down about how many horses, Dan, did you see at Cheltenham Trials Day that are going to win at the Cheltenham Festival? Over to you, Stat Dan.
Is this even a stat? This is an opinion.
No, it's not really. I really wanted to sing that.
You are a baffling human being at the best of times, Lord above. Oh my days! I hope you're not like this on your shoots up on when you're doing this racing live, like Lord above. I'd pay for the behind the scenes footage of some of those.
I think I'm probably a little bit worse because on those shoots, obviously the tiredness comes into play, and so I'm even more maniacal.
I saw you doing a moonwalk at Rebecca Menzies.
Oh yeah.
That was something. Yeah.
Yeah, a muddy, deep ground. She's in wellies, and Bully's rocking up in like pure white trainers, skidding across the surface.
Yeah, do you know what's annoying as well? Actually, when I do that, people always think I'm like some kind of city boy, and I'm actually country bred. So I mean, I really should be wearing my wellies and my big boots. But the trouble with those is that if I'm taking them all the way up to Northumberland, they're not small. My wellies. It's a bit of a pain to carry. That's the reason. Anyway, look, we're on a tangent. We're being tangential. Dan, I want to ask you.
This is behind the scenes. This is what people want to hear. They want to hear your real life woes. Oh no, my wellies are too big. Go.
Rebecca Menzies was either laughing at me or laughing with me, and I'm pretty sure it's not the latter.
Comment down below. Which one is it, everyone? Is it with or at? I think there's going to be an overwhelming sway in one way there. I know what I'd be voting for anyway. So what was the original question? How many winners coming out of Trials Day? Well, Constitution Hill would be 1. I think East India Dock would have to be top of the list now, really, for a Triumph Hurdle. So that would be probably 2. And then generally, obviously, with the handicaps, you generally get 1 or 2 coming out of those. So I think if I was to have an educated guess as to how many, I think I'd go with 3. I think the line would be 2.5. But I'd go with 3 from the day.
Okay. I think I'd give 6 Mile Bridge more of a write-up than you did. I think he was very good.
Really? Okay.
Well, it was the proper first time over hurdles he'd taken on good horses, and he was very impressive. And I loved the way he hit the line. Like he went further clear as he went up the hill. And I'm looking forward to seeing him against top class horses because I think he's earned his place there. And he's clearly progressive, like he's improving with every start. And as I say, the first time we've seen him against proper horses, and he was very good. So yeah, I'm excited about him, I have to say.
There'll be some progress to get beaten at Stratford on your hurdles debut and then go and win a Grade 1 at Marsh. I don't think any horse would ever have done that. I mean, yeah, that would be hell of an improvement to go on. I know they've always rated him highly. He just isn't the horse who does it for me. I don't
No,
know
fair
really
enough.
why.
No, fair enough. He does it for me though. So we'll see. We'll see who's right come March. Um,
Again, comment down below who's right.
right on to JPR news updates. My favourite segment of the week. Go on, JPR. Give us your. I just realised JPR won. Sorry, that's completely thrown me. Right,
Yeah, the horse
give
is
us
named
the.
after me.
Yeah, exactly. What exactly? And he's a bloody good horse as well. So there you go. Right, some news updates for us, Jake, this week.
Yeah, obviously last week we had the Grade 1 entries for the novice races. I don't think there's really too many surprises. Pretty much every horse was given every option you'd expect them to have. There's no Jalon Duderies, who, as has been touted, is going for the champion bumper by all accounts. And Mr. Megget also wasn't in there. He seemingly has picked up an injury and won't be making the festival. Another horse who probably won't be making the festival, which I haven't seen too much about, is Slade Steele. He wasn't given any Grade 1 entries, and apparently he's had a little bit of a setback, so he's not going to get his third run in for the novice handicap either. So that might be one that has to wait for Fairy House, etc. As much as he hasn't been as impressive over fences as he was over hurdles last year. Another really important piece of news is the BHA this week moved to clarify that non-novices, so horses who aren't novices anymore but are running in Cheltenham handicaps, they also have to comply with the 5 runs over hurdles or the 4 runs over fences in order to qualify for the Cheltenham Festival handicaps. So that's really important for the likes of a Kitzbühel, who's only had 4 starts so far, and even Shanna Bob, who ran in a Potemps qualifier last week. That was only his 4th start over hurdles. So if he wants to run in the Potemps final that he's now qualified for, he has to run again between now and the festival. So it's one to keep an eye on, make sure that your horse has 5 starts over hurdles or 4 starts over fences. Then just a bit of news on some horses. Grey Dawning is likely to skip Cheltenham in favour of Aintree, according to Dan Skelton. That would be a bit of a shame, considering he won at the Cheltenham Festival last year. But seemingly that looks like their plan. Lucky Place is going straight to the stairs hurdle, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on, stepped up to 3 miles. And then lastly, the biggest breaking piece of news over the last couple of days is the Jukebox Man is out for the rest of the season, which is a real shame because obviously he was very short in the Brown advisory market and would have been a really nice chance with them pooling. So commiserations to them.
Do you know what? I thought that last one was such a shame, wasn't it? I mean, I read that and I thought, oh, come on, a novice chaser from this country who actually has a chance of winning at Cheltenham, and of course he's out injured. I mean, you could
And the
write
race was just
script,
kind of
couldn't you?
starting to stack up really well, the Brown
Yeah.
advisory, and that
Yeah.
just kind of took a bit of the life out of it, which it would still be a decent race by the initial looking at the market now, but he would have been a big player, and you say one of the leading British hopes. So yeah, really, really bad news for the team. But they seemingly think he'll be back in the autumn without too much of an issue. So seemingly the injury isn't too serious, which I guess is the one silver lining.
Straight to the
Yeah.
Coral Trophy, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. Oh, could go Paddy Power. He's got enough speed. He's be quick enough for
Yeah.
that.
DRF time. It's a big weekend this weekend in terms of trials. We had Cheltenham this weekend. Now it's time for Ireland to take centre stage. We're going to come a couple of selections each, briefly for the 2-day meeting. Dan, going to start with you. Always a cracking couple of days, isn't it? I know you got some selections for us.
Yeah, brilliant. Our first time there last year. Looking forward to getting back there again. Yeah, just bumper to bumper quality. Obviously, some complain about it's Willie Mullins' domination, but obviously Gordon Elliott tends to not as far as many there. But the one horse I would be interested if Gordon does run, if he runs into Nathaniel Lacey, I'd love to see Blue Devassi stepped up in trip. Like a horse who won over a 2-mile 3 on his hurdling debut. They said he'd stay further, and then he's been running over 2 miles for the last 2 times, including in the Royal Bond last time out. I thought that was a good run under the circumstances. I said if he does step up in trip, I'd be really interested in him. Couple in the handicaps as well. Back to Normal is a horse who has been firmly on the radar for handicaps. He's been running pretty eye-catchingly in beginners' chases, as is often the way. Pottering around, he had some very solid hurdles form to his name. Looks fairly handicapped on Mark 130, so he's of massive interest in that 2-mile 5 handicap that the yard would have won last year had Percival Legawa not tipped up. And then one at a massive price in the 3-mile handicap hurdle is Harsh, again for Gordon Elliott, even though I've just said he doesn't run many here. I'm assuming he can't avoid his runners, which I hope go hit for this race anyway. He won a big Punchestown handicap towards the back end of the last season for Joseph O'Brien on his first start of 2.5 miles. This year, he's been with Gordon Elliott, and he's been quite eye-catching on a couple of occasions. Latterly, the last twice, just seemed to get outpaced tactically over 2.5 miles, and then over Christmas again at 2.5 miles, staying on really strongly from the back where didn't have a great passage through. Steps up to 3 miles here. He's only a 5-year-old, but he looks for all the world that he is a stayer. He still looks fairly handicapped based on what he was achieving as a juvenile. So I think there's more improvement to come from him up to 3 miles. And I think he's about 40 to 1 currently for that handicap. So I think he would be a fair bit of interest. And the jockey bookings will be interesting. I imagine maybe someone like Carl Miller, I think won the race last year, might be booked. So he'll be one at a big price of interest for me.
Juicy odds there, Dan. Juicy, juicy. What I like to see. Okay, two for you. And Jake, what do you fancy?
Yeah, I've mentioned Queen's Gamble, who's going across for the mare's handicap for Harry Durham. So good luck to connections there. It's great to see them, eyeing a target like this and going for it. I think she's got a great chance, to be honest. She's off a mark of 134. Rachel Blackmore's been booked for the ride as well, so she'll definitely have a favourite chance.
On her, Jake, do you think is there any ground concerns for her? Do you think? Because obviously I've just looked. It's soft heavy in places now. It's dry a few days, and on Sunday night or Saturday night rather, they're getting more rain. So just
Yeah,
if it's
if
on the
that's
heavy side, she doesn't love that.
if that
Does she,
Saturday
really?
rain comes, it would definitely scupper her chances. But if it stays
Yeah,
dry between now and then it would be absolutely fine, I think, because obviously Leopardstown dries quite quickly, doesn't it? And we
yeah.
normally have issues with it being too quick. So at least we've got some decent soft ground for the Cheltenham horses. But yeah, the other one that I'm really keen on, and she'll definitely love it if it's on the softer side, is St. Lucy in the Spring Juvenile. She's a mare that I've actually been toying with putting up on the Ante-Post series for the Triumph Hurdle. I've had a few conditions in my own brain of when I could do that. Had Lambert been beaten on his debut, for instance, I would have put her up. But considering how East India dock around on the weekend, I think it's probably a good avoid at this stage with those two at the top of the market. However, there's still this grade one at the DRF to go, and that's going to produce some kind of Irish challenge. And I think that she could be it because she was so impressive when she won on her hurdles debut. It's the maiden hurdle that was won by Stormheart last year. She went and absolutely bolted up. There's the horse in seconds now rated 122 in Britain, having run well since. I think he's going to go to the listed race at Musselburgh on Saturday. So, there looks to be a decent bit of form there. She looked a very good mare. She was obviously getting the allowance. I think that Paul Townend will probably end up going with her. I don't know if he'll stick with the grade two format. That's the only thing he could do with Lady Vega Allen. But either way, I think St. Lucie has got a great chance. And maybe I won't be able to collect in the Triumph, but hopefully I can collect this weekend.
Okay, Jake, thanks very much indeed for that. I'm going to put forward a couple for the weekend. One race that I've, for some reason, looked at so many times now, maybe it's because the first race, is Nathaniel Lacey. And I think Pray Tell is just massively overpriced here. He was making his first start over the extended 3 miles in that grade 3 at Cork. That came at the beginning of December. He was very impressive. Beat one of Dan's favourites, Manila Tixo, really well that day, and showed a nice turn of foot coming to the last and one going away. Apparently, he's had loads of injuries in the past, and the last couple of seasons, Keneally has managed to get him going properly. And although he's 9 now, I think we're just starting to see the best of him, particularly over that kind of trip. I think he's got some of the best form so far, winning that grade 3 in soft ground. He's 20 to 1. I think he's massively overpriced. The problem is, of course, the market looks at this race and thinks that the first 3 in it are all Willie Mullins horses and fine. But if it wasn't a Desmond Keneally horse, he'd be a lot shorter than 20 to 1. I think he's got a big chance of making the frame at least. And then the other one, you probably laugh at me, but I think, yeah, well, I think Solness. I mean, Solness in the well, the trouble is, and you'll probably put forward the thing about the ground. If it's soft ground, you might want it, but he wants it quicker. But he has got really very strong form on soft ground in the past on occasion. I don't think the ground is going to be an issue for him if it is soft. And I know he got that easy lead last time, but there wasn't any fluke about it. But the horses in behind had every chance to get to him, and they didn't. So I just think around about 9 to 1, he's overpriced here. And although he might not win it, even if he gets in the top 3 or the top 2, you're going to get an each way return. And I just thought that was a really nice performance last time. I think he's overpriced. Both my horses here, Pray Tell and Solness, I think have got it wrong in the market. So that's where I'm headed.
The only thing with Gaelic Warrior is I think people will be half keen to take him on because of the way he behaved here last year. And that's always going to be a bit of a concern with him. He's not the most reliable conveyor. I don't think he's ever a horse you really want to be taking short odds on. And there are a few of interest. I thought maybe like something like Calixios might be. I think 20-1 would be maybe more
Emmerich
interesting.
Bromhead
But
can't train a dog to shit at the minute, though, can he?
that is the issue. That generally is the issue. Like if they were in any half decent form, it would be interesting. But he's going through that classic patch where literally, as you say, nothing raises a leg for him. So
Hmm.
I can see why you want to take on Gaelic Warrior Bully. But I mean, if Solness ends up being a dual Grade 2 winner and a Grade 1 winner this season, then Christ Almighty, the division's even worse than the Stayers Hurdle if that's the case.
Right, that's the DRF covered, and we've got the main draw of our shows, I suppose, and it's the Ante-Post Selections for week 4. Going to go to Dan. You first with your latest pick.
So I was struggling again this week. So what do you do when you struggle? You get a horse priced up for a race. That's what you have to do. So you go where no man has ever gone before. And I do need to caveat this with I swear I'm not getting some sort of backhanders from the Philip Hobbs and Johnson White yard because this is starting to get a bit ridiculous. But I've got Imperial Saint priced up for the plate and he's 25-1. And I do think that is a pretty fair price. Now, he's a horse I've not really warm to necessarily this season. I thought you could pick holes in a lot of his runs, a lot of his wins earlier, particularly Aintree, who was running some pretty weak enough races. Some were falling apart. Obviously, 2 of those coming over 2 miles. I just wasn't really sure on him. I thought he wouldn't necessarily be a Cheltenham horse. But he improved again when stepped up 2.5 miles at Boxing Day. Obviously, he beat Richmond Lake comfortably, who's won over course and distance there, was on the same mark, went on to run really well in the Prix de Marche. So I actually think that was a fair performance in the circumstances. And then he went to Cheltenham this weekend for the open handicap chase there. Didn't go for the novice, he went for the open handicap chase, which I think is interesting that they decided to go that route and not the novice route. And didn't have a bet in the race. I thought it was really trappy. So I was very much open-minded, but I did have in my head that this is probably a flat track horse given his runs have been at Aintree and Newbury. So I was intrigued by him, but I was not ready to back him for that race whatsoever. So I was very much just tracking everything with a view to future races. And throughout that race, he was the one who really took my eye out. He was ridden a lot more patiently than he has been previously. He's made all for a couple of wins this season. He was buried towards the back end of mid-division on the inside. I think it looked like a bit of a ride to get big field handicap experience into him because, I say, some of his wins have come in relatively small fields. He's made all to win. So I think this was very much an educational experience. But he jumped really well. He seemed to handle the track fine. And he was the one who I thought was just tanking along at a crucial stage of the race. Just as they were rounding the bend on the run to 2 out, just starting to get niggled along, but very gently. And I think that was the crucial point where the race developed because you had Moon de Ronge who came from the clouds, but was at full drive to do so. They got to the second lap with Grand Gendarme, who had been basically front rank throughout. They were very much in full gear and were getting kicked into that second last. They went a couple of lengths clear. Imperial Saint was still just getting nursed into it. Could never really bridge the gap thereafter. Couldn't get that momentum back that he lost at that stage. But to me, again, it was very much a ride with an eye to education and maybe future races. Kept on really well under I wouldn't say tender enough ride. He was asked to pick up. It wasn't like he was plotted for anything. But I didn't think everything was given to him there. And he kept on pretty nicely to finish only just under 3 lengths beaten. It's gone up a pound to that to a mark 145. But I just thought the way he went through that race was in the style of a horse who had more to give. I'd say that was only his second start of that kind of trip over fences. It clearly is going to be where he remains, and he may even go up further in time. But he now at least proved as well he handles Cheltenham, and that is crucial. And we've seen, particularly with the plate, course form is vital, and you very rarely get winners of that race without any semblance of course form. And to me, he's proven without a shadow of a doubt that he handles basically all conditions that are thrown at him. Ground doesn't seem to matter to him. He now shows he handles undulations. And ultimately, with the likes of the novice handicap, which of course he still could go for, that race is going to be full of 3 raced plots, effectively. And the fact that they ran him in the open race and not the novice handicap would very much suggest to me they'd go to this race instead. And I think when you look at his profile, rapidly progressive novice, still unexposed at the trip, a very solid course and distance run last time out, at 25-1 currently, if the race cuts up as I anticipate it to, and I think you look at the top of the betting for this, I think it's littered with horses who just won't run. I think he's got the profile of a horse who would go off a single figure price when you look at him like that. And that race that he just running has produced plate winners recently, Cool Cody being the most recent example. Sidelac won that race and went on to win the plate. I think his profile would suggest he's got a single figure price should the race cut up as anticipated. I was surprised I was able to get 25-1 about him. I don't see why they'd go to the novice race and not this one. So 25 to 1, I think that's got potential to be good value. And hopefully as well, come the day, they may well revert to more positive tactics, which again, he's proven he likes, and it often pays dividends in the plate as well.
And Imperial Saint has been a lucky horse for this podcast so far this season. So hopefully he can continue to do so. And I've liked him. I like his profile. I like where you're going with that, Dan. So yeah, fingers crossed that he's going to get to that race, which I think is probably
imagine Philip Hobbs, Johnson White have a handicap double. Imagine the scenes. Come on, Lowry's Bar. I defy that unnecessary £4 rise. Prove them all wrong.
Absolutely right. Good stuff, Dan. Thanks for that. It's your week 4 selection. Going to get Jake's now. Go ahead, mate.
Yeah, I'm not quite on board with the Philip Hobbs Johnson White double just yet.
He will get the double. Don't doubt it.
It's definitely the right horse that you want, because obviously there's going to be such a lack of novices in these open handicaps this season. So I think it's a good angle to try and take if you've got one that can qualify. But this week I really wanted to attack the Turner's novice hurdle. Obviously the novice hurdles have looked very muddy at a lot of stages this season. It's only now that we're starting to see the final plan starting to unravel. Obviously, with Potter's Charm bombing out this weekend, I'm of the same opinion as Dan. I really can't see him troubling at the festival now after that. He's already had his 5 runs. If they left him at 4 and then had the 5th at the festival, that would have been optimum for me. But he's been on the go since the end of September. Like, I just really can't see him being able to peak again. Obviously, the new line makes the market. We've mentioned him many times on this show. I just think he's too short. Like, he may well go and win, but I'd be very happy to watch him go and win at that price, because it's just very short for what he did. And he won on the bridle without having to come off it and battle. He's surely going to have to come off it and battle at the Cheltenham Festival. We've seen many horses before not have to battle before they get to the festival and then throw in the towel when they meet these Irish horses that are clearly well treated, well treated in terms of their well-being and being prepped for the march. So I would definitely be able to take him on without having too many worries. The Yellow Clay is also in here. He's a horse I really like. I'd be looking at him, playing on him on the day if he did go to this race. The reason why I'm happy to leave him for now is because I do still think the Albert Bartlett is an option for him. I don't think it's cut and dry. I know Gordon has obviously come out and said that the Turners is what they're probably aiming for. But I could just see a world where he does end up going to the Albert Bartlett regardless, because he would have a favourite chance in that race, whereas he would obviously isn't going to be the favourite here. So I think it would depend on what other horses Gordon has, but he's a horse that I can leave for now. And then you get on to Final Demand, he's a horse that I think could be the fly in the ointment to my plans, which I'll start to explain in a minute. But he's a horse who was obviously 1 over 2.5. He's going to be running in the 2 mile 6 Nathaniel Lacey this weekend. I think it's just as likely that he will step up and trip the Albert Bartlett as he will drop back and trip for the Turners. So he's again one that I'm happy to leave for a second, because he has got very short in both markets now. I think he's around 8 to 1 in both markets, considering all he's done is won a maiden hurdle. I really want to see what he does this weekend before getting stuck in. And as I said, the Albert Bartlett could easily be his destination. Obviously, working out Willie Mullins Bingo is never easy, but they've got Salvador Mundi in the Supreme. I think that's clearly going to be Paul Townend's ride. So he needs a ride in the Turners, and he can't ride the JP horses. You've got to remember that when you're looking at Willie Mullins Bingo. So Kay Dorothy would be one that he wouldn't be able to ride, and I think that he might be the one who ends up going to the Supreme. Now, he's obviously running in the 2 mile Grade 1 this weekend. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to go down in trip. But Kawabunga came out and won at the weekend as well. He beat the likes of William Mully and Cocktail Divan over 2 miles at Fairyhouse. And what they said after that race was that they wanted to go to the Turners with him. So they're going to step him up in trip. It looks like Kate Dorothy would then go 2 miles. So therefore, Paul Townend needs a ride in the Turners. And I think Kopek the board is going to be that ride. Look, he was a really impressive winner of the Fairyhouse bumper the end of last season. Everybody saw that. Everybody had him on their radars as a novice hurdler going forward. I even said in the season preview for this show that I thought Kopek de Board was a graded novice hurdler to keep an eye on. He went and won his maiden hurdle over Christmas, and that was a really nice performance. Obviously, it was in the fog, and he didn't jump very well, which is kind of what you can upgrade it with. But he went and beat Kawabunga by 2 3/4 lengths. Like, he's clearly got a massive engine. If you look back through the form, obviously Kawabunga this weekend has then gone and beaten sorry, he's gone and beaten Cocktail Divan by 22 lengths. Cocktail Divan was obviously hadn't run his race this weekend, but he was only just behind Kate Dorfey. So I think on a line through those two horses, you're kind of looking at Kopek de Board being ahead of them all. And I just think that stepping up in trip to 2.5 miles is going to be exactly what he needs. Obviously, he's running in the 2 mile Grade 1 this weekend at the DRF. He's probably going to be Paul Talman's ride this weekend. He'll probably go off favourite this weekend. He'll have a favourite chance as long as he jumps better. I think that's what I really need to see from him this weekend, is that he's improved his jumping. Willie Mullins said after, the Leopardstown race over Christmas that his jumping was good at home, and they were a bit confused as to why he jumped like that. So that would give you encouragement that hopefully he'll be absolutely fine this weekend. But if he does jump this weekend, even if he comes second, I think that there's a chance that the Turners is probably the race for him. If he wins the race, I could see him going the route of recent winners at this race, where Willie has sent them up in trip. Obviously, Ballyburn last year, so Gerhard the year before, a couple of years before, they both went up in trip for the Turners because at the beginning of the season he described them as stayers, and that's what he described Kopek de Board at the beginning of the season as well, as a stayer for the future. So I think that going up in trip is probably what they want to end up doing with him. But then again, as I said, if he comes second to potentially Kate Dorfey, probably the market rival for him this weekend, then I think that again that will probably lead to him being stepped up in trip, and that could end up looking like a really nice piece of form going into the Turners. So I think there's a lot to gain and not too much to lose in backing Kopek de Board this week, like right now for the Turners. Obviously, it is a risk. You're playing Willie Mullins bingo, but I think that if I was going to weigh up the chances of which race he'll run in, I'd say it's probably around 70% Turners, 30% Supreme at this stage, just purely because Salvador Mundi's in the Supreme and Paul can only ride one of them. So therefore, he's going to want another horse in the Turners. And as I said, I think Kopek de Board fits that bill. So he's around 10-1. You can get there's 9s at Betfair and Paddy, and 10-1 on Bet365 without non-runner no bet. So I think that's worth a stab now. It could look really good this time next week. It could look about the same, or it could look like he's going to the Supreme, depending on comments after the race. But I think that he's a horse worth siding with now.
See, I think that's the analysis on what horses go where. Like, that's all superb. And the one thing is, you just know all it needs is Willie just to go, no.
Yeah.
Like that all sounds too logical to me. I'll do something else. Like, because it's all spot on, and I'd agree with every single word in terms of where I'd see it all panning out. But
yeah,
you have to have.
It's too simple.
It does, and you have to kind of go into it with the attitude of one man on the day could just go, yeah, actually, we'll just declare him for the Supreme anyway. That's the only thing. So you're never going to be 100% sure until he lines up. But yeah, no, I think I'd agree with the analysis, but we'll see. We'll see if Willie fancies toying with you.
It's going to be a big race this weekend, though, because obviously we've got Carafon from last week running in the Grade 1 as well. So we need him to finish third or fourth, and we need Kopek to win.
So many contrasting emotions. Yeah. And if Milo 6-0 could just not run anywhere, that would be grand. Cheers,
That would be lovely.
Just leave him alone.
I can actually see Kopek de Board one stage being like the next sort of big runner on the flat for Willie Mullins at some stage in his career, because he clearly has so much pace and he's got a massive engine. I hope for your sake, Jake, that he learns to jump. But I'm just thinking perhaps if he never quite gets it together properly, maybe they'll go on the flat with him. He has got
one of the more
engine.
surprising developments of the season is Willie Mullins' novices who just refuse to jump.
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen anything like it. Like, I mean, half of them just can't lift a leg. Jasmine DeVoe, chief principal amongst those.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully he doesn't go that way and gets even worse.
No,
that would be very bad news. Yeah.
Yeah, a bit. It's not just his novice hurdlers either. Olympic Man has been known to belt a few fences in his novice chasing.
Well, he also loved hitting hurdles, to be fair.
Yeah, he did, to be fair.
All obstacles come alike to him.
Very true. My selection this week is going to be in the Ryanair Chase, and I'm heading to Ile-Francais, who hopefully will go that route. And I think that's the biggest question mark at this stage. Which race is he going to go for? Will it be the Champion Chase or will it be the Ryanair? I desperately hope Noel George and Amanda Zetterholm decide to go the Ryanair route, because I think it's a much better fit for him. I don't need to introduce him, really, do I? He was last seen finishing second in the King George behind Banbridge, having led them all a merry dance for most of the journey. And it was just after the final fence, which James Reevely did not see a stride on, and Paul Tannen did, that he got beaten. And it would have been pretty close, I think, had they both jumped the last with the same kind of momentum. In the end, it was Banbridge who had that extra impetus, and he proved too strong. However, Ile-Francais ran a mighty race. He has so much pace over that kind of trip, which is the reason he could put so many horses out of their comfort zone in behind. And if he adopts those tactics and manages to do the same thing in a race like the Ryanair over the 2 mile, 5 furlong trip, then he's going to be extremely hard to beat. As I say, there have been a lot of talk about him going to the champion chase, and I hope that doesn't happen, because if he does, yes, I mentioned the pace that he has, and I think he's probably got enough pace to run in a champion chase. He's not got enough pace to win it. He's not got enough pace to beat the likes of John Bond. And the other thing in the race is that he might get taken on for the lead. So I hope that Connections decide to go the Ryanair route for Ile-Francais. His profile is pretty consistent. A lot of fuss was made about his couple of outings. So 2 from his last 4 starts have resulted in really abject performances at Auteuil. One of those, though, was at the back end of April, where he had a long break and he was just way too keen. That came at Auteuil, and he hadn't been seen since winning the Quarto Star. So I think the fact that he'd been off for 100 days and then couldn't settle. He's been 55 lengths. It wasn't his running. But of course, 2 starts ago, Auteuil in that Grade 1 over 3 miles, 3.5, he burst a blood vessel. He had a pulmonary aberration. So that run can be completely discounted. It's not an Auteuil thing, though, because he's run very well there on plenty of occasions. Has won there loads of times. So I think he's just had those couple of blips that both have excuses. In between, of course, he did win at Auteuil. And then he went to the King George last time and finished second. So I'm not worried about his constitution. I think he's going to be absolutely fine come Cheltenham. I'm also not worried about him going that way round left-handed, because, of course, he's proven that he can do it at Auteuil as well. His jumping is a massive asset. When he gets in the rhythm, it's one of the reasons why he's such a powerful and potent weapon, because there aren't many who can jump as well as he can. His jumps indices have been off the charts in recent starts. The scores that he's got up. I know that Dan loves a figure or two, Festio Jumps Index, but he's been off the charts on those figures. So that's one of his massive assets. If you look at the Ryanair race itself, in terms of those who are likely to be biggest opposition, we obviously have at the top of the tree 11-year-old Jungle Boogie, who is going to be one of his biggest.
Damn right we do. I've seen a load of people putting him up now. I've seen a lot of people now. He's become the shrewd option, but you know where you heard it first. Let's dance. Let's boogie.
Correct. In terms of the race itself, I think it lends itself to a horse like Ile-Francais making all and getting them all in trouble from an early stage down the back straight, and then having too much gas in the tank and seeing them all off. So as a 7-year-old, you look at the record in the Ryanair since 2013, 6 7-year-olds have won the race. And just trying to find an 11-year-old who's won it, but I can't. And I think
that you can find one of as few runs as Jungle Boogie, then come back to me. And you can find one who tanks for a Gold Cup, whereas you've picked a horse who just bleeds every other start. So, have fun with that.
That is an awful exaggeration.
It isn't. Yeah. He's done it twice.
You've done it twice, yeah. But yeah, so for me, Ile-Francais hopefully won't bleed, and at Cheltenham he can land the Ryanair, which I think looks the perfect fit for him. If you had to do a Tetris puzzle, he'd be slotting right into that Ryanair picture. So for me, it's Ile-Francais this week in week 4 of our Ante-Post selections. Lad's been a lot of fun as ever, and hopefully got some wins in there. Do you know what? I'm not Andrew Blair White, Dan. I feel bad when I say things like that, which is so silly, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. Yeah. Please. Because you're just an open target for me. Please have a go, because then it just allows me to lay into you. So no, I'd welcome it all.
Jake, final word goes to you. DRF this weekend. Excited? I'm sure. Hopefully, we'll learn plenty of clues.
Yeah, myself and Dan are going to be over there with Andrew Blair White himself. So if you see us, come and say hello. We'll be happy to have a chat about racing. And yeah, just really can't wait to get back over to Dublin. Looking forward to it. It's going to be a really good weekend of racing.
Yeah, certainly will be. I'm very sad, actually. I'm not going this year. I went last year. But I can't get out of work this year, unfortunately. But it is what it is. And I'll be watching it very closely and earnestly from the comfort of the office. Okay, good stuff. That's it for this week. Please do remember to like and subscribe to us. As I said, we'd love to get to 300 likes and 2,500 subscribers. It would really help us along on this Ante-Post journey that we so love. Until next week here on The Jump Show, it's goodbye.